this, but it wasn't like my favorite show in the world, I'm gonna say. But his tone is like impeccable, you know. It's just a one of a kind. And I went with my buddy, or two guitar player buddies of mine, and we were just like, you know, drooling over the sounds that he was getting, you know.
He's still using that Strat, right? He's still got that.
Still using that Strat. He goes through a couple guitars. He played a couple acoustic numbers. His acoustic didn't really, you know, I've never been a fan of acoustic guitar DI into a PA. It's
you can't make it. No, you can never.
So unnatural, you know. But it's very difficult to get the right sound. And he's up there and he's moving around.
It's about the performance, honestly. With live acoustic guitar. That's what I find, at least.
Exactly.
You're never
going to
get
like. Oh yeah, and it was just so incredibly over compressed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's just like you hear the pushing of that compressor every time he's strumming. You know. But it was, you know, and it was cool. And he actually did a couple songs on piano too. He's singing, and playing piano. And at one point, I was with Mayer. Mayer was one of the guys I was with, and I leaned over to him and I was like, "We're at an Eric Johnson show." He had another guy, a sideman, this guy Dave Schur, who was like incredible, stole the show in our opinion. And he was playing keys and guitar and just kind of a mix of things. He played bass on one song, and this guy is playing keyboard, and Eric Johnson's playing keyboard and singing, and there's this guy Roscoe Beck on bass, and the drummer, I forget his name. And I leaned over to Mayer and I was just like, "Dude, we're at an Eric Johnson show and nobody's playing guitar right now. What is happening?" You know?
Oh my God.
So it was cool. It was, you know, he obviously played Cliffs of Dover and whatever. But like I said,
the hits.
Maybe not necessarily my favorite show, but it was still, you know, he's an awesome guitar player and he's a legend, you know?
Absolutely.
Anyway, as to tone and stuff like that, I mean, he's a huge influence, and you can hear that he's, which I'm also very into, is like kind of rolling the treble off of your sound. And his two big things is his clean tone. His clean tone is incredible. I mean, it's just so warm and big, and he's got these big echoplex reverbs and delays going on, and it's just so signature to his thing. And it was like spot on. Like if you turned on an Eric Johnson record and compared it to his live tone, that's it. I mean, I'm assuming he's just done the same thing forever and has just been like, this is it, not going to mess with it. And that's the way. That's the right way to do it.
I found where the knobs need to be, and I cannot touch them.
Yes.
If we need to mess with tone, we're buying another amp.
Yeah.
Like, that's it.
Exactly. And he had some incredible amps too.
Wow.
He had these two big Fender heads. I don't even know what they were, but they were giant. Some of the biggest Fender heads I've ever seen. And maybe Bassmans, I guess. I don't know.
Could be.
And Two Rock is his main rig, I think. TWO Rock, Two Rock. But anyway, for tone, for me in the studio, it's like also another thing that I learned from Steve Cotton when I was recording one of my first albums as like a trio. He was like, yeah, just, you know, roll your tone off because you can always add that treble. But if you want to take that treble away, it's not as easy, you know?
Interesting.
Yeah, so he kind of he just told me about, that's what they did in the studio. He always kind of dulled it down.
That sounds like a ribbon mic also, like would help with that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
That's what ribbon mics are, right? You start off without that crazy high end.
Yes, exactly. And they're just warmer, you know, they're kind of warmer sounding, a little more body. And
I guess it's easier to add top end than to get rid of harshness. That's
yes. That's essentially what he said, which I've come to agree with. You know, I think that's true, and I always kind of, even live, I kind of, you know, I tend to roll the treble off a lot, and because you know a lot of it too is I'm using in-ears live, and it's sometimes you don't get the liberty of having an X32 at every gig where you can EQ your guitar channel and your in-ears and all that, and you're kind of just. It's up to whatever they're sending you know?
Absolutely.
So oftentimes I'll EQ, I'll turn my treble down and let them, you know, it's funny because sometimes I've gone and I've looked at the EQ on the guitar mics, and these guys are really boosting like all the 4K and the 6K out of my mic because I think they're just trying to make up for it because I guess maybe I'm rolling too much off. But to me, it sounds incredible. Like I love that kind of mellow. You know, and Eric Johnson, that's like his thing. His lead tone is very mellow sounding. It's not abrasive.
Right. And he's playing a Strat, which is like a very bright instrument usually.
Yes, exactly. And that's always been like a pet peeve of mine. It's like Stratocaster through a Fender amp. It's like you're going to get those pins and needles happening, you know?
Absolutely. Well, you know, Leo Fender didn't really hear a lot of high end. That's like the story. Like
Oh wow, really?
The legend of the story. I heard this.
I guess that makes sense.
I heard this on YouTube via Sterling Ball, who's the CEO of Music Man, Ernie Ball's son, and he remembers Fender in the early days when he started the company, and like Leo Fender, and he was saying that Leo Fender just didn't have top end hearing, and that's kind of how he made all these bright instruments. Wow, and it's like that's the tone of rock and roll and the tone of
totally.
guitar. You know what I mean? Which is nuts.
Yes.
So, anyways,
but that's to that in the studio when I'm mixing too. Another kind of thing that I've been doing recently is, like I said, I'm kind of tracking with the treble down, cutting the high end on the amp.
What's your knob on the guitar? 5?
The tone knob, I'm usually at 7. I'm gonna say
cool
about, and then a lot of it I do from the amp. It's like I have a Mesa, so it has the 5-band EQ and stuff like that. So I'm actually oftentimes doing a lot of people I've read or seen, they always talk about scooping the mids with a Mesa. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You got a 5-band EQ, and they're pulling down those 3 middle knobs.
Yeah, and the graphic EQ.
And I think it's 750 is the middle, and then you got 2.2 to the right, and then you got 250 to the left, and they're kind of scooping all that mid-range stuff. And I've kind of done the opposite, where
you're getting rid of the subs.
I'm making a frowny face. I'm pulling down the
high pass, low pass, baby.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense to me, because the guitar is such a mid-range instrument. The guitar is mid-range,
totally.
Which is why the SM57 works so well on the cab. Also, from what I understand. I mean, obviously you're not using that, but it just highlights those mid-range frequencies.
Yeah. And to the 57's greatness, I do love. I had always just never liked 57s for whatever reason, but I think they were just from these old shitty experiences I had, where it's if you're miking a tenor sax player with a 57 at a gig, and it's just sounds like garbage. You know what I mean?
Right. Totally.
And what I've learned, over the years is that, or it was me, probably, a guy puts a 57 on my guitar amp. But, I didn't care about my tone or my sound back when I was younger. I just threw the amp on stage, turned it on, and just started playing, you know what I mean? And that's obviously has a lot to do with it. So it's not the 57's fault, I've learned. It was my own fault. So I've come to love 57s now. I use them all the time. And right now I'm just using them on the drums. I just have pretty much just one on the snare. And I have a couple other
bad boys
things going on with the drums. But, yep.
Nice. So, in terms of do you have any crazy effects that you use in the computer, or is it all pedals
for guitar wise, I often record dry unless it's my style. In fact, is kind of like that. I don't use a lot of reverb, and everybody always tells me that. They're like, "How do you not have a reverb pedal? You're a guitar player." And I'm just I don't know. I never liked it. It always was I want the notes to be heard clearly and cleanly, and I want them to resonate with. There's obviously I don't not use delays and reverbs, but I'm just more often than none, I'm just going clean with a couple distortions, So besides that, I always pretty much at this point in the game, I'm just recording dry guitar and adding stuff afterwards, because I'm a little bit indecisive, and seeing as I'm not only recording and writing, but I'm also mixing a lot of the stuff, I don't want to have to record everything and then realize that reverb sucks, and now I got to go back and re-record all the guitar. You know what I mean? So it's I'm more often just working in the box just for flow purposes. It's just easier workflow.
Totally.
That way. And like I said, it's if you're just getting a great tone out of that guitar amp, just track it dry, and then you can do whatever you want to do to it post. And there's obviously a lot of naturalists out there that need the sound of that particular pedal, and I've obviously done that too, but I think it's a healthy balance of kind of both, using the pedals when you really need them, and that's the sound you want,
Yeah.
And then also, on the other hand, not being afraid to just record it dry and add some stuff in afterwards.
Totally. The computer really gives you that flexibility to kind of either commit or not commit,
Yeah. Exactly.
I think that's it's good. It's important to commit sometimes, I think, but
yes,
but it's also good to have that flexibility.
Yes, exactly. And like I was saying before, with me having this kind of Zappa music mentality of just get them done, just get the songs recorded, put them together, release the songs, just don't take forever doing it. That's kind of like, just being able to not have to worry. Just like, I know that I'm just going to plug in 2 pedals, turn my guitar on, and just start recording, and then worry about the tone of it kind of afterwards when I get to the mixing,
Totally. I love that.
Yep.
Wait, I don't even think I mentioned the name of your group on the podcast yet. It's called Schwiz.
It's called Schwiz.
Do you want to give Schwiz a shout out or?
Sure, I guess. I've never shouted out my own band. I don't know.
Well, you're on a podcast, so you could talk about whatever you can talk about yourself. Yeah. This is the opportunity.
Well, it's been a long journey with Schwiz, which started over 10 years ago, and we started as like a huge 9-piece band. We were kind of like a Lettuce style, turquoise funk. A little more aggressive, I guess. And started off as that, and we've slowly dwindled down to just 2 guys. It's just me and a drummer right now. Mr. Andy Boxer is the drummer. And we're kind of, it's been a long growing process. And now these days I'm actually focusing a lot more on like my sort of solo endeavors, just going with the Ryan Liatsis style now.
Whoa.
And the, Schwiz will always be a thing. We're obviously going to keep doing it. But, for years, we were on the road playing 60, 80 gigs a year, whatever it is.
Wow.
And it's a lot when you're in a band and you're traveling around that often and you're not, making tons of money doing it, and you sort of, I think at this age, 33 now, kind of get to that point where it's like, well, am I going to keep doing that, or am I going to find some other way to make money and be able to pursue the original stuff? So I'm more focusing on, taking more advantage of this studio situation that we have, with doing my own solo stuff. And we're making a Schwiz album right now, which is what I think, in my opinion, is probably our best stuff that we've ever made. It's just way more in the fusion-y realm, and, sort of like, I like to write complex music, but I like simply complex music, if that makes any sense, sort of like great examples like Weather Report, Jeff Beck, even like Chick Corea to some extent. I mean, he has a lot of complex pieces, but those kind of old school fusion-y type of things where they're not so avant-garde that like people in the room are just going to be like, well, okay, it sounds good. They're good musicians, but like, I don't understand what the hell's going on,
Yeah.
So I'm more into like playing melodies and things that like anyone could listen to and just be like,
totally
sing along to it. You know what I mean?
Like a Herbie Hancock kind of vibe.
Yes, exactly. I'm more into that type of stuff, but really capturing the tone too. And we did a couple different things with this album, and we had some special guests. We had like a couple bass players come and play, and a really great guitar player, Tim Palmieri from this band Kung Fu, and the bass player from Kung Fu, Chris DeAngelis, and we had this guy John Ferrara from Consider the Source, and Luke Baband from a band called The Special.
Cool.
And I'm working on a track now with Ed Mann, who is a member of the Zappa band.
Wow.
And we had this guy, David Krumholtz, who is an actor, buddy of ours that I met through playing Grateful Dead music. And I had the Zappa, so we have the Zappa song going on the record, like a Zappa-esque homage to Zappa. And so we had him come, and we do like this kind of back and forth thing in the intro of the song, very Zappa-like. And he sings a lot. He's a great singer too. And we had him sing, and he sings with our Grateful Dead band and stuff. So we went kind of all out trying to get guests involved, and really tried some new kind of techniques. And I'm doing a bunch of classical guitar tracks on this album, and we kind of got a little experimental, I guess, with this current album.
Awesome. Well, definitely I'll put some links to Schwiz in the show notes, and anything you send me, I'll pop in the show notes so people can check it out. Cool. So when you're working with artists other than your own stuff, like, how do you balance your creative vision with what the artist is going for?
Oh, that's a tough one.
Because you say you hear a song, you're like, okay, this is how it has to go. Like you envision it.
Yes, and for the most part, a lot of the people that, at least recently, who I've been doing, it's like they kind of give me this sort of creative control in a way, because sometimes artists, there's like variations of artist knowledge, I guess you could say, when it comes to studio recordings. There's people that, come in there and they have a vision and they say, this is how I want it done. This is how I want the drums to sound. This is how I want this. And then there's people that are just like, hey, we're recording our album for the first time and we've never done this and we really need some help and some input and we're all ears and we're gonna